Broadcasting live from our studio in Boston, Solutions Review is proud to showcase Deltek in the Solution Spotlight, a unique online event for industry professionals.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to this Solution Spotlight focused on delivering more efficient and profitable projects featuring Deltek. Through our coverage of ERP, we've seen a strong interest from our audience in engagement-centric solutions like you'll see today. From initial pursuit through closeout, consulting firms need to manage engagements efficiently. According to a CGI Insight to Action report, 63% of consulting firms say they're concerned about budget overruns, which is why today we're very happy to take a deeper dive into Deltek's Vantagepoint solution. Access to real-time project data is a must for effective management of multiple projects and overall company performance. Gaining visibility through an all-in-one solution allows your team to deliver and manage successful projects more efficiently. Deltek's Vantagepoint Project Command Center gives you complete visibility into projects and resources, allowing you to track time and expenses, manage billing and invoicing, and better manage resources in a complete engagement-centric solution. And joining us to walk you through the Vantagepoint solution is Sarah Dickinson, Manager Solutions Engineering from Deltek. Sarah, thanks for being with us.
Hi, Doug. Happy to be here.
Well, Sarah, I couldn't be happier that you're here. This is, as I mentioned in the intro, an incredibly important topic, I think, for us to be talking about this year, given not only the subject, but just the kind of whole paradigm shift that we've gone through, as working organizations. And so I'm really interested to dig in on this, but I do want to just take a moment and learn a little bit more about yourself. So you've had an interesting journey at Deltek. I know you've been there for about 7 years, or maybe even more, slightly more. Tell us a little bit about the path that you've been taking.
Yeah, Doug. So I've been at Deltek, you're right, about 7.5 years. The first 4 of those years were actually spent on the product management team. So I worked closely with consulting firms, understanding their needs, understanding how their businesses worked, and actually translated that into features and functionality that you will see in Vantagepoint today. So I transitioned after about 4 years into the solution manager role that I'm in today, and have been working with clients to walk them through how Vantagepoint can help their business.
Yeah, great. And I think that's a very interesting perspective for our audience today, to have that not only the kind of builder side, but also the solution end user side. So I'm gonna turn it over to you. I'm gonna jump back in and here and there, but I'm gonna let you present a little bit, and then we'll have another chance to chat prior to the demo. Just to set everybody's expectations. If you have any questions throughout this event, please submit them and we will take them as they come. I'm certainly going to have a few, but we'll gather them all together at the end of the demonstration that Sarah's going to do, and we'll walk through the last few minutes answering any questions that you might have. So with that, Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll be jumping in periodically from every now and again.
Sounds good. All right. So as Doug mentioned, we are going to be talking about how consulting firms deliver more efficient and profitable projects and engagements. So quick agenda. We're not going to spend a lot of time in the PowerPoint today. I'm a firm believer in seeing how it's actually going to work. So we're going to be spending a good bit of time in the demonstration, but we are going to be talking about what Vantagepoint is and why do consulting firms love it as a solution to run their business. That's going to include visibility into the end-to-end project and client relationships. So both sides all in one solution, understanding the health in real time of the project and the resources in your team, which obviously the past couple years, that's been really important and really front and center for a lot of organizations. And then also managing all of the aspects of your company's financials. So this truly is an all-in-one solution from very first conversation that you have with a client all the way to delivering those engagements and closing them out. We're going to leave some time at the end for Q&A. And Doug, I think prior to this session, I was curious, with the organizations that you all engage with, I'm always interested in how many solutions people are using to run their business, whether it's a CRM, financial, project management, resource management. And I think you had some of those results for us today.
Yeah, so we actually, ahead of this event, we did a bit of a poll on LinkedIn to our ERP showcase audience around how many solutions does your team use to run your entire business. And we're going to open that poll as well on Zoom for everybody attending to weigh in as well. So I don't want to color it too much, but I will say that the early returns are that it's complex. 3 to 4 solutions is a pretty typical response that we're seeing. I mean, truth be told, at Solutions Review, we're falling into that category as well. So again, as I've said, I think this is a perfect time for this kind of a conversation. I'm looking forward to the demo. So again, I'll turn it back over to you and
Awesome.
and let you continue to show the Vantagepoint solution.
Perfect. So as Doug mentioned, and this is pretty common, I would say 80 to 90% of the clients that we work with come in and they say, I have a lot of information in a lot of different places, and everyone on my team accesses it in a different solution. So this fell in line also with the results from SPI research. So Deltek does a lot of work with SPI. They put out a professional services maturity benchmark that allows you to compare how your business is doing to peers in the industry where you are. And one of the key takeaways this year was that firms just don't have the information to make the real-time decisions. So it's not that we don't have the ability to make the decisions, we just don't have the information so that we can justify those decisions moving forward. So this was interesting because this also fell in line with my personal experience that people are coming in with, disparate systems, they want real-time information, there's lag in information. And this is where Vantagepoint can come into play. So Vantagepoint is one of Deltek's flagship products, purpose-built for the consulting industry. It is a single source of the truth. You will hear me say this a couple times today as we're walking through that demonstration. It is also going to be a browser agnostic and mobile enabled solution. So anywhere you have access to the internet, we're going to be able to get you access to Vantagepoint. These next 2 bullets are really, really important. It is highly configurable out of the box, meaning that you don't have to do custom core code changes. We're going to give you tools to design screens and design dashboards. We're also going to give you the ability to maintain and control role security so that everyone on your team can access one solution, but what they actually end up seeing might be different based on their role. So if they're just entering time and expense, that might be all they see. If they're more on the finance side, they may spend more time in those areas. If they are resource management, engagement management, they may have a few other additional areas. So I'll cover off a lot on this in the actual demonstration as well. Before we hop into the demo, I also talked a little bit about why specifically consulting firms end up working with us and talking to us about Vantagepoint. It's really that unmatched 360-degree visibility about their whole business. I want to understand how the business is doing as a whole, but I also want the flexibility to understand how an engagement is doing and how an individual team member is doing as well. It's that real-time information because we're not syncing and connecting different modules and different information. It's all truly one solution. So the second you save a timesheet, we're going to be able to let your engagement managers know that that particular effort has happened. And then the last part really leverages on notifications, workflows, alerts. It gives them the opportunity to proactively manage those projects and engagements rather than reacting. So as Doug mentioned, we're definitely going to be here. We want to have those questions at the end. If you have any of those, feel free to put those in the chat. And Doug, I will pass it back to you as I am getting my screen ready for the demo.
Yeah, so take your time. We want to make sure that the transition certainly happens successfully, but the demo is going to be probably about a half an hour, 35, 40 minutes. And again, any questions that you have, by all means, submit them and we'll get them directly to Sarah. Interestingly enough, the The early results of the live poll that we're running right now are similar and reflective of what we found in the earlier poll that we did on LinkedIn. The Zoom results are showing very much a proclivity toward 4 or more solutions being required to run the business. So I think, again, it's probably a good time for us to let Sarah show everyone why the Vantagepoint solution is such a timely presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, Sarah.
As promised, we're going to be taking a look at Deltek Vantagepoint today. A couple of the things that I like to cover off on in the very beginning. One, this is a browser agnostic tool. Anywhere you have access to the internet in a browser, whether it's on an iPad, a Surface Pro, desktop, laptop, you will be able to access this solution. It does come with 2 mobile applications, one that's focused around capturing time and expenses with expense receipt capture and time and expense approval. The other is going to be focused around capturing information related to your contacts, your firms, your project activities, these CRM related actions. So within Vantagepoint, one thing to highlight, Vantagepoint supports the tracking and reporting on your projects and engagements that you are pursuing. So those are still in a pursuit stage, as well as delivering on the projects that you have won. Vantagepoint is also a role-based solution, so there is a place for just about everyone on your team to live within Vantagepoint. We focus on the idea that it is highly configurable, so that we allow you to move things around, drag and drop, and build out views that really make the most sense given the particular role that you are playing. And these dashboards are really easy because we have these dash parts over here. We can drag and drop them on. And again, these are all individually configurable as well. We'll go through a couple examples of dashboards. We're going to dive into that project hub and really focus on the ideas that we can manage a single engagement from very first conversation all the way through winning, delivery, invoicing, and closing out, as well as the areas where we can understand how the health of our projects and our team are working, and also cover off on some of the company financials, because this is going to be the financial tool as well. Starting off, the idea that we want to start high level, at a glance, how is my business doing? What is the different revenue by the particular areas of my organization? Different offices, different disciplines, being able to easily break that out. Understanding my utilization across my entire team, as well as what are the contract values that we have going on right now? How much of that contract have we billed already? What do we have in outstanding WIP or unbilled transactions? Maybe understanding outstanding AR by project manager is something that today is done via email. Now we can do that and just put it directly on a dashboard. I promise that this is a solution that can manage your business from beginning to end. So within Vantagepoint, we have the ability to truly see into the future and understand and forecast out what our pipeline looks like. So whether we want to look at this by particular stage, we want to understand the win and lost reasons, maybe our top 5 clients by compensation, or I want to come down and actually take a look at maybe just my in-pursuit projects for the next couple months, and maybe I don't want to look at it by project manager, maybe I want to look at it by stage. So being able to look at that weighted and estimated fee, the CRM capability within Vantagepoint is going to support you there. As we're thinking about winning projects, delivering on them, the idea of just having a really easy list type of view to access on your dashboard with important KPIs is also supported. So the idea that I can segment out, I can see just the projects that I'm interested in looking at, and I can define information like drill downs and what information is important to me so that I can quickly see how much have we billed on these particular projects, what are those invoices, and what are the details and day sales outstanding. As we think about a project, often the idea of planning our team, planning out how we're going to deliver this project as we're pursuing it, as well as when we are actively delivering it, are going to come into play. Vantagepoint has a great way of giving you visibility into the health of those projects as well. Here we can see a couple of charts and graphs that highlight information about the health of our given projects in a visual manner. So right here, I can understand across these projects how much we have billed for them already, estimate to completion, ETC, how much we think we still have left to bill based on a plan, and how that compares to our total compensation or our fee for that particular engagement. I can also look at information related to what's our planned profit. What's our planned cost on these particular projects, as well as that total compensation or fee. And of course, easily being able to take a look at our planned labor amounts and just looking at what's planned and what our actuals are. So we have a good understanding as we're progressing through the project, and there are no surprises at the end of an engagement where you say, oh, wow, we really blew through that budget a lot faster than we were expecting. Probably one of my favorite grids to take a look at whenever we're talking about planning and really drawing the attention to the projects and the engagements that need your attention is going to be this project plan table right here. This is very simple where we have our fee, so understanding what's our contract for that particular project, job to date, JTD, what have we billed on there already? Estimate to completion, what do we think we have left? And if we add those together, it gives us an estimate at completion. Where do we think we're going to cross the finish line, taking into account what's already happened and what we think we have left? The last column here has some conditional formatting configured that allows us to understand which of these projects, if we continue on the pace that we have planned, taking into account what's already happened, we are going to come in over budget. This is a good indicator for those engagement managers to say, hey, let me get in here, let me figure out what's going on. Could be a couple things. We could be maybe have additional scope. We could be working less efficiently than we were expecting. Maybe there's a whole bunch more work that the client has asked for, and we actually need to be charging more for this. We should be charging for additional services or amendments here, and this gives us the data to understand that, identify it, and have those conversations. When we're talking about identifying and understanding, it is important for me to also note that Vantagepoint comes with a full notification center. So the idea that we can be notified within the system to do tasks that are required of us, but we also can configure the workflow engine to allow us to keep abreast of information and changes happening within our business. New projects that have been created, approvals that are required, resources that have been added or removed from particular engagements as well. One last area, as I did mention, we've got the ability to take a look at the planning, how we're delivering. One of the other key areas that often we hear from our clients is that there's a lot of manual process in keeping people updated on what has been billed for a project, what are those unbilled transactions, and then outstanding AR. As project and engagement managers within your organization, this is often their responsibility, but sometimes they don't have access to the information easily. This is a great way of doing that. We are also able to have additional visibility into different types of projects with different billing types, being able to see what the draft invoice status is, as well as what that total is for that draft. So at any point in time, people can come in, take a look. They will also be notified if there are draft invoices they need to go and approve. For those on the finance team and responsible for things like AR, understanding the billed revenue by different project type, we're going to be in here with you as well. So truly one solution for the entire organization. You would just define who has access to what information based on their particular roles. So let's go ahead and take a look at that project hub. So Vantagepoint, as we come out here into this main navigation, again, it is role-based. You will only have access to the information that you define for particular roles. So those on your team that are responsible for resource managing and proposals or billing and accounting or vendor payments, you will have access to the information that you need, no more, no less. We do have this hub area. These are going to be those master records that are shared throughout the solution, the contacts, the firms, the projects, and we will take a look in this project record. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning that this solution does track information and projects, whether we are in a one stage, or I'm just going to switch tabs here. This is also where we are able to access information for projects that are in an in-pursuit stage. So we can see this here. We're just in a stage of request for proposal. We can also see that the capacity calculation is excluded for our teammates. Why this is important is because Vantagepoint allows you one single place to manage those projects beginning to end. It also allows you to start planning, entering contract information, and entering billing terms or the rules in which you are going to be invoicing your clients as early as you know them. You don't need to put it in a separate place. You can put them into Vantagepoint, and just by the pure fact that you have selected a particular stage, it will be smart enough to separate out and partition the projects that we are delivering and the engagements that we are still pursuing. You'll notice here, same items that we have. Again, if you know the information, we have a place to store it in Vantagepoint. I'm going to go back to the one that we are already pursuing. You can see some additional information here about the projects. What is our job to date estimate to completion on these projects across our labor expenses, consultants, and units. You can also see this information here in the project plan summary. All of this is available both in billing, and we can take a look at it in cost so that we can understand our profit at the end. The key here is that this is really just a singular project, where all the other dashboards we are looking at many. As we continue through here, you might want to see a little bit more detail. So Vantagepoint does have what's called a project review, being able to drill in, see who worked on particular projects, how many hours they worked, and if there were any timesheet comments as well. And then, of course, just the main details page. What are we tracking about a particular project? Here's the information, any important dates, any of the go, no-go analysis, being able to attach files, links, and proposals. We did talk a bit about configuration, and this is an area where I want to talk about the designer just for a moment. So this is where we have the ability to actually design the screens on the page. This is also where we're able to add user-defined fields, tabs, grids, dividers, so that you can create a form that matches with your process today. So Vantagepoint out of the box is going to come with a lot of these processes built in. If there's something different that you need, this designer will be there for you. By adding additional user-defined fields, they are automatically available for you in reporting, automatically available for you in dashboarding. There is no need to write any code to come back to Deltek. You will have the ability to do this. Of course, we'll be there if you have any questions. Another key piece of a project or an engagement is going to be contract information. Vantagepoint allows you to keep track of those contracts down to the level of detail that you choose. And we also allow you to break it out based on your labor, any reimbursable or direct expenses or consultants. And this is also where we are able to track additional services and choose how those are going to be worked into our particular project. Maybe they're worked into an existing phase, or potentially we just add an additional phase so that we can easily track those particular parts of the project. Talked a lot about this kind of work breakdown structure, phases and tasks. These are set up. You can set up as many as you would like, and they are always going to be configurable in here. We also allow you to track different parts of your organization to different phases and tasks. Why this is important is because this is where we are able to say these transactions, we want them to go to the New York office and the consulting part of that New York office. And this particular phase, we want Chicago engineering to get credit for that. Any transactions put at those project phase, at that phase or task level with the associated organization will get credit. This allows us, when we're running financials, to break out comparisons for office to office, comparisons by different discipline or vertical that we're operating in, and allows us that additional capability. This is a project-based accounting system, which will essentially mean you have a dual ledger. You've got one for your company as a whole, but you also are able to break out project by project detail. Now, the project plan is also going to be a vital part to any project or engagement. Whether you're doing this in Excel, you're doing it in another solution, Every single person that we talk with, even on the back of a napkin, has an idea of who's going to do what work and about how many hours it's going to take them, and a general idea of what they want to charge their client for it. So as we can see, the plan is where we're going to be storing this information. The contract flows in here automatically so that we understand kind of where we're targeting for. We also have a schedule that allows us to take a look at the different areas, project phase, and task level with dependencies. In the labor area, we're able to see again the project phase and task information, as well as who is on the project. And if I check it out, we can even add additional individuals based on the ones that maybe have good availability, based on the other projects that they're working on, or based on their particular skill set. And we'll talk about that as well. Within here, at a high level, assignment, who's going to be working during what time period, job to date hours, the hours coming through from their timesheets as soon as they save them, estimate to complete hours, the hours that we come in and adjust as we think we need more or less hours, estimate at completion hours. This is where we think we're going to cross the finish line. How many total hours is it going to take for us to complete this work? Multiply those by a billing rate, and then we're able, that of course you get to choose, and then we're able to compare it to that contract value. So within here, we can see automatically, based on the number of hours and the rates, that we're actually going to overshoot that contract by $1,000 or so. This is a good indicator. This aligns with the red highlighted conditional formatting we saw in those dashboards in the beginning. This is also a place that can trigger an alert to an engagement manager or a project manager that, hey, there's something going on here. We need you to take a look. We are also able to take a look at those planned and actual hours across a calendar view, whether it's in days, weeks, or months. Each row is also going to come with some labor charts so that we can understand visually how we are performing towards that contract. And if at any point in time we have an assignment, we need to make a change, we are able to do that directly in here. So we can reassign to a new resource. We can reassign the entire period or a portion of it, as well as a portion of the hours or all of them. And again, we're going to give you visibility into the scheduled availability of the teammates that you are looking to do that assignment to. If they get assigned, again, you can set it up where the notification can notify the teammate. They will be able to come in, take a look at what their assignments are. They will also be able to see this information whenever they are in their timesheets. So labor is one portion that we may need to plan out. Planning out expenses and understanding, if we have any discrepancies. In this instance, we had some expenses that came in. We didn't actually plan for them, so Vantagepoint is actually highlighting that to me. The same thing is going to happen with our consultants. So as we are working through, we are able to have markups that are applied automatically depending on what type of consultant it is. We are also able to track that job to date billing in the contract values. So good visibility into not only our team, but also how are we tracking against expenses? There shouldn't be any surprises. For those that are using a lot of subconsultants or subcontractors, this is a great place where you can start to track and understand how are we performing based on what we had planned and what we were expecting to get in terms of invoices from those subs. Vantagepoint, lastly, does also allow you to plan out units. So units could be something like a webinar or a workshop or a seminar. You determine what that planned cost is, as well as the planned billing amounts, and then you are able to track those. I mentioned on the labor that the job to date hours come in. Any of those posted units that you get from somebody's timesheet, they say, hey, I worked this many hours, but we actually want to bill out, $10,000 for a workshop. That's going to come through and show up in our job to date quantity as well. So as we are piecing together the parts of the project, the contract, the details of the project, who's going to be and how are we going to be delivering it, the billing terms is another area that we like to cover off on. Billing terms is where we are defining, are we billing for the units? What are the particular rate tables we're going to be using? Vantagepoint supports as many rate tables as you would like. It also is where we are setting up things like fee And we also support the ability to have a fee manually entered or create a schedule. So if you're working with a client and it's a fixed amount every month, this is a great way to gain some efficiencies. Format, what information are we including and how much detail? We can be as high level as professional services and a total amount. We can get as detailed as individual, their role, the date, the rate, the hours that they worked, their timesheet comments. If you have things like retainers or billing limits that you need to track, that can also all be stored in Vantagepoint. You don't have to store this outside of the solution. We do support the ability to have different phases, have different phase terms, which essentially means you've got a monthly billing schedule, but any additional work, you're charging time and materials. You can have that tracked in different phases and have it all automated within the system. Last but not least, this billing backup is going to be a huge item. Any of the expense reports, the AP unit attachments that you have stored in Vantagepoint can automatically be added to the invoice at the end so that you have that billing backup without having to manually keep track of it. So we're not necessarily going to make any changes in here. This is just telling me I've got an invoice that's already in process. And since that popped up, maybe let's go ahead and actually take a quick look at that. So as a project manager, I can be notified in the notification center. I can be emailed to say, hey, there's a invoice that you need to take a look at. In this instance, I'm able to come in. I am also able, you can see a couple comments here, to add comments so that my billing team and the finance directors can make those adjustments. I'm also able to drill down and take a look at my full invoice, including information like billing to date, outstanding AR. And you are also able to have all of those particular receipts that we were talking about included automatically. Now, to kick off an invoice, we need some inputs. We need the time, we need the expenses, we need some AP. That's all got to flow through into the interactive billing area. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at what that looks like. As I had mentioned, you do have the ability to enter your time in the mobile application. So being able to drill in, add hours to the timesheet, select the projects that you are working on. You will also have that ability in just the browser application. This is where I can come in, and I said there was a tie to the plan. I can actually copy from the plan, which essentially means that I can choose the projects that I am assigned to during this time period. I'm able to see how many hours I'm expected to work, and it copies in the information related to the project, phase, task, and labor code. Information that maybe some people don't necessarily always get accurate. So as we're going through here, we are able to then just rely on the team to enter in their hours. We do support the ability, as I mentioned, to have those comments as well as global comments, depending on how you want to track those comments. There's full approvals, budget validation, warnings that can be set up. The idea is that we want to set up the bumpers for the team, because if we get timesheets entered accurately, everything after that goes a lot smoother. Now, I did mention the team will also have access to take a look at units. So if we are coming in here and we have some units, maybe we've got, again, that seminar and we're able to track that information, those can be submitted with their timesheets as well. So timesheets is a place that we're going to have approvals, expenses as well. So being able to track those expenses, being able to include details, who was at the particular meal, what project do these expenses need to be coded to, as well as company credit card import. So you can import your company credit card statements based on the card that each individual owns and is set up. We will serve up the transactions that need to be associated for that particular individual. So full approvals around those expense reports. The other area and the other input that I mentioned was AP. So understanding that we might have sub-consultants and we need to be managing that portion of the process. So we can start off by uploading an AP invoice, or we can dive into one that's already in progress. You can see this one here. We are associating it to a particular project. We are able to select the vendor, include the amount. We are also able to define who we want to do the approval, whether we want it to go through a process or we want to send it to an individual. Most commonly, the invoices are coming into a single email box or potentially still through the mail. And then we need to have somebody input into the solution, and then somebody else typically needs to take a look at it and decide, yes, this is the amount that we were expecting. So Vantagepoint's going to allow you to streamline that process and keep everything in one solution so that we're all going to have that information that we need moving forward. I have mentioned that draft invoice process. Whenever we're kicking that off, we really can kick it off either in a batch manner, which means I can literally with one click take a look at the projects, take a look at the billing terms, the terms that we have for AP, the terms that we have for the time, the expenses, the units, determine which of those transactions should be included in the invoice, and actually shoot that invoice out for the initial draft review with one click. Doesn't require anyone to do anything as long as we have the billing terms set up. So with one click, we can send those out. If the individual from who's reviewing it has some comments, has some of those annotations, interactive billing is going to be a great place for us to make and absorb those changes. So first off, they will be able to see the changes here. So they can come in and say, okay, I want to update this to 18,000. I can go in at any point in time. So for that instance, it was come in here and we want to update this to 18. That's fine. We can make that change and then we'll be able to send this along and either submit it for another approval or we can just send it out final. So that's to accommodate any of those changes. But let's just say that before we're even sending these out, we know we want to maybe hold a particular transaction or we want to modify it. Maybe they worked 8 hours, but we want to change it to 4 because this person's new and they're still learning and it really should only take 4 hours. We can even transfer to a different part of the project or a different project altogether. This is where you have that control, where all the inputs that are coming in land in one place in interactive billing, and you control what you want to be included on the invoice. Same goes for the expenses and the units. The options that we have here on the transaction level are all items that are, again, going to be supported by role security. So we've sent these invoices out, we've done the approval, that's perfect. We're going to get a little bit of understanding about the different firm health. In this AR review, being able to understand what is the outstanding AR for these particular types of projects, how are we performing, and how are we collecting, and then giving the team the ability to add comments directly from here so that we don't have to keep a post-it note or a separate note. We can actually include a comment related to AR, and this can be exposed from a dashboard as well. When we're talking about kind of sending out those invoices, the other side of that is also keeping track of our vouchers. So we'll come in and select one that we've got here. So this is where we are able to very easily keep track of the documents, when the last payment date was, what the payment terms were, as well as the amount and the balance for those particular vouchers for each vendor. While we're talking about vendors and vendor payments and employee payments, let me give you a quick view of that before we wrap things up for the day. So Vantagepoint is allowing you to manage and process your vendor payments all at one time, very similar to the batch process. So I'm able to go through the entire system, take a look at everything that we owe to these particular vendors. And then at any point in time, I can dive in, I can see what invoices and vouchers those are tied to, make adjustments to the payment if I choose, and then process that payment, generate a file, or the checks that we are going to be paying those vendors with. So as we've been talking through today, there is a ton of discussion about lots of people on the team and how we keep the team informed, allow them to do their job efficiently, and get access to the information that they need to see. One of the key pieces that we have been noticing is really important lately is understanding the health of your team in general. Who's over and underutilized based on billability, but who's also over and under scheduled based on a scheduled percentage. how is the team performing, and giving you tools to make those changes and adjustments directly from here. So if we need to come in and reassign or balance out some of these hours, we can choose someone who has additional availability, not someone who's already overscheduled. So Vantagepoint is going to give you the information to make those informed decisions. If your team is used to doing a staff meeting or a Monday morning meeting of who's working on what, this is a great place and a great view to use because it allows you not only to see your team as a whole, but you also could break it out by different specialties, by different pods of teams that work together, by different managers or employees that you supervise. You also have the ability to break this down into different labor categories and allow you to really take a look at the skill set that's necessary for a particular engagement. With that, we have spent a good bit of time today walking through all different parts of the solution, whether we are managing the finances, we are keeping track of the business as a whole, we are keeping track of our plans, our team, what our activities and responsibilities are, or just checking on the status of an invoice without having to ask anyone else. Vantagepoint is going to be a place to manage your whole business, a place for your entire team to get and stay informed and to make the best decisions for your firm. With that, we will kind of transition into Q&A, and I'm excited to talk with you all about this.
That was a very tidy demonstration. Thank you very much for that. I'm curious about what types of projects do you recommend using a tool like Vantagepoint for?
Yeah, so I think it's really all projects, right? So Vantagepoint is a project-based or engagement-based business and allows you to get a high-level view of how your business is doing as a whole, but it also allows you to really break it down into a project-by-project level and be able to see that reporting capability as well. So really anything that's project-based, professional services specifically, is going to be a really, really good fit.
Well, and by way of background, Deltek's been building this for some time now. I mean, this is a iteration, I think it's release, 6 maybe?
6, exactly. Yep, 6.0. So yeah, we've been at it for a while, incorporating lots of feedback and moving things, throughout the solution. And we even added an ideas portal where, our active client base is telling us, hey, they're voting on things. They say, this is what's important to us as we're moving forward.
So let's talk about that, because you've been involved in that at the molecular level as a product on the product team. But can you speak a little bit about that and give some perspective as to where feedback comes from, how you take it in, and then how you go about implementing that into the new releases?
Yeah, so Vantagepoint typically has, 2 releases a year. We actually take in feedback either from our client base, we have a very active user group, or from the events that we have throughout the year, whether it's those that are talking with our sales reps, our solutions engineers, any of our consultants, support, anyone within the walls of Deltek, as well as all of our clients have access to this ideas portal. And it's essentially a portal that you put in your idea and you say, hey, I would love it if the solution worked like this, or here's an enhancement request. It gets reviewed by the product management team. It then goes out there and can be voted on by others. And every release, we get a report of, hey, here's the top ones, and here's the ones that we've worked into that release. So really spending a lot of time listening and having kind of our ear to the pavement on what people need to help run their businesses better.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm encouraged to hear that, because you have a lot of clients. And so can you speak a little bit about what clients, I mean, obviously there's a whole wide spectrum of them, but what clients are you seeing really interested in that currently?
Yeah, so clients come and speak with us when they get to a point and there is something that's keeping them up at night, something that feels inefficient. It's not necessarily things that are wrong, but they feel like there might be a better way of handling it, and they want a streamlined solution. Typically, the kind of nugget or the kernel of that is it takes a lot of steps to do something, or a lot of individuals have to be involved in a process, where in Vantagepoint, it might just be a streamlined solution. So the clients that we end up talking with usually have some kind of discomfort, maybe pain's a little bit too strong, but some discomfort on how they're doing their daily business. and they say, hey, I want to understand if there's a way that I can do this in a more streamlined fashion.
And so who in an organization does that typically look like? I mean, who would you see as kind of the folks who should be thinking about this within an organization? I mean, how many, is there a team? Is it line of business? Is there a team? I mean, what are you seeing in terms of who you're engaging with?
Yeah, I mean, it really runs the gamut, but we do spend a good bit of time with those that are not necessarily all the way at the top because they want good visibility, but it's those that are managing the teams that are doing the work. And those are the ones that, they feel the pain. They're the ones up at night that say, there's got to be a better way of doing this. But to be honest, to get full team buy-in, we really do try to work with the entire organization. Even if we start working with just the business development group or just the project or engagement management group, we do typically make it a point to try to involve more people on the team because more often than not, there's other areas that we can help streamline with Vantagepoint. So we want to really talk with the whole organization and figure out what makes sense, right? It's got to be a good fit for the organization. They've got to be okay with making a few tweaks and changes, but the benefit typically outweighs those, so people end up happy in the end.
Well, and there are a lot of elements to the solution, moreover
Yes.
than just kind of simple project management, and I don't mean to minimize it, but there are elements that that perhaps folks don't realize it can be extended to, like CRM, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of how it can expand and ultimately, I think, create that efficiency around one solution with multiple modules, if you will?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned that because we work with a lot of project managers and teams that are managing the work that they're doing with their clients. And they typically have a lot of those pains that we can address. And they find us, online or through, events like this. And then the wheels start turning and you start to say, oh, okay, this has full financial back end. This is a full project-based accounting system as well. What are the things that can help streamline things on that side from the invoicing side? And then we also start to say, okay, how do we actually get the business in the door? And that's kind of the first question that I start asking when we've got a group. Even if they're not working in business development, everyone has to get business in the door, whether it's a referral or we're tracking it or we're going to events. These are things that are happening. We just want to understand how can we leverage a solution to track it and become a little bit more efficient.
Well, so we are getting lots of questions coming in, and happy to have them. One is around mobile functionality. So I know you spoke at the beginning of your presentation about being able to connect through the internet. Can you talk a little bit about the Vantagepoint mobile functionality?
Yeah, absolutely. So it does come with 2 mobile applications, iOS and Android supported. One that's focused around capturing really CRM related activities. You're out and about, you're having conversations, you want to, scan a business card, get that information into the solution. And then moving forward, we can figure out, are they a qualified lead? Are we actually going to create a pursuit project about them? And from the time and expense, I mean, it's not, everyone has to do it. It's not something that we all like to do. So we have tried to put that in a mobile fashion so that people can do it without having to drag their laptop out, get a quick picture of a receipt, use intelligent character recognition to get that in. And, adding those approvals, we mentioned that ideas portal. That was one that came from an ideas portal where people said, I don't want to do my approvals and bring out my laptop on Friday evening. I don't want to do that either. So being able to do that, on a mobile device from the palm of their hand was something that we added in based on feedback.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it does speak to what we were talking about earlier with regard to the paradigm shift of how people want to work at organizations. And there is a lot of remote work and now with such powerful collaboration tools, and powerful visibility, it really does enable that not only for large organizations, but for smaller firms. And actually that segues into a question that we have, which is what are some tools or features a small firm might benefit from that you would have as a perspective?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the beauty. I mean, we have clients that have 5, 10 individuals. We have clients that have thousands of users on the solution. So I talked about role security, I talked about configuration. You're really able to scale the solution and then grow with it as your needs grow. The designer capability and role security would be the two as a smaller firm, where I would say scale it down. What's the information that you're tracking today? We don't need to track every bell and whistle about a contact and about a firm right off the bat. What's the information you're tracking today? Scale it down to that. And then as you grow, naturally teams start to ask for, hey, I'd love to track a favorite sports team or sport or activity whenever I'm logging contacts. You say, oh, okay, well, we can add that information in. You don't have to come back to Deltek. It's all going to be supported in that configuration.
Yeah, interesting. Another question, which I always like and feels like a softball question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What resources do you have to get users up to speed quickly? Which, again,
yeah.
I'm sure you have lots of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, typically as I'm working with clients, they say, okay, well, what would it take to get me from where I am today to live on Vantagepoint? And Deltek actually has an entire implementation team. We go through process and meeting where we highlight everything that's going to happen in a process and say, here's a worn path that we've done with clients similar to yours of similar size based on your needs. Here's how long we think it's going to take. And we actually walk you through those steps. So you're not necessarily on your own. We're going to be there, and we've done this, hundreds, thousands of times with other clients. So we know kind of the best practices and what works and what doesn't. And we're able to leverage that as we're working with you to get you live.
Nice. So I'm going to ask a question now that I'm not sure I truly understand, but I'm gonna hope that you do. Can you soft allocate resources to pipeline for forecasting?
Yeah. So you do have the ability to, I do understand that. Yep. So you can soft and hard book. Vantagepoint also has that capacity calculation where you essentially can plan people wherever you need them and then determine, okay, this is quote unquote a real engagement we're going to start delivering to our clients. Now I want this scheduled and this assignment to count against that individual. So it is truly real time and flexible based on not only the individual's assignments, but also where we are on that pipeline or that journey of winning that work.
I see. So another question with regard to a specific feature is, how easy is it to use the expense tool?
Sure. If you can take a picture, you can use the expense tool. You really just scan the receipt. It will upload that into the expense report. And then if you need to make tweaks and changes, you can when you get back to the office, or you can go all the way through and do a complete expense report from your mobile application as well.
Well, so at the beginning of my introduction, I mentioned that 63% of consulting firms say that they're concerned about budget overruns, and clearly, if you're, as you well know, if you're a consulting firm, it's all about managing people and hours. I'm curious what you would advise folks to be thinking about as they're thinking about potentially getting a next generation solution like this. I mean, everybody's doing something, and I think everybody knows in their heart of hearts that maybe it's not the best thing. But they're not quite ready yet to make a leap. So how would you advise them to begin to think about, preparing for that initial engagement and exploring the idea of engaging Deltek?
Yeah, I think the kind of light bulb moment for me was this past ProjectCon. We had a user conference, and when I was talking with individuals, I asked, well, how does somebody know what they're working on? How do they know what they're supposed to be working on? Do you tell them? Do you send them an email? Is there an Excel sheet? This planning is happening somewhere, whether it's the back of a napkin or a Post-it note or something. You have to have a team, regardless if you're 10 people or you are thousands, somebody is managing that somewhere. When you are looking at making that switch, close your eyes and really think about what you're doing. It's usually individuals with hours over some kind of time frame. That's all we're doing in Vantagepoint. We're just giving you a different place to put that information. So it is a bit of a change, right? It's not the Excel, it's not the, Word doc somewhere. But by doing it all in one solution, you can leverage the timesheets, you can get real-time information, and you start to say, okay, maybe a small tweak in where we store that information would give us so many more benefits as we're looking out into the future. And that's really speaking again to that like maturity model also for the SPI, right? Like we need to be able to get that information and have information so that we can make informed decisions.
Yeah, so, and obviously we would encourage anybody in our audience to reach out and have a conversation with Deltek. These things are easy to do. You shouldn't be fearful of engagement.
No.
It's always, I've always found it to be one of the greatest light bulb moments is when you start to really talk about how things might work differently. And I know that you guys do this a lot. So tell us a little bit about what somebody can expect when they do reach out and how best to reach out.
Yep. So reaching out to us, it's typically through online. You can certainly reach out to myself and we can kind of get you routed to the right individuals. Deltek will work with you as a team, usually with a representative and a solutions engineer. And we really start with what are you doing now? And what are you looking to change? And then based on our knowledge of the solution, we can start to say, okay, here's how this process will look. Here's some things we could tweak. Could we or should we consider a change here or there? But it's really, it shouldn't be a scary process. We don't bite. We will definitely just have those conversations and we'll be open and honest. I think that's the important thing is if something really feels too far-fetched or we're not quite there yet, we'll be honest about that as well. But for those that are looking, it's worth a conversation and we're happy to have those as well.
Outstanding. Well, Sarah, I think you've answered all the questions that we have. It's been a tremendous presentation. Very much appreciated. I'm curious, what are you looking forward to as we roll through the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I am just getting some glimpses at our next version of 6.5. So as I mentioned, usually one in the spring, one in the fall. So we're already getting our hands on that. And then at home in Greenville, South Carolina, looking forward to a very hot summer.
Well, we appreciate you taking some time to talk with us today. This was a great presentation and I think timely for our audience. So thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having us.
You bet. So there you have it. Another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Sarah and Deltek for their presentation today. And we appreciate your attendance as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.